The Jeffrey Dahmer murders, the horrifying crimes of the Milwaukee Cannibal. Jeffrey Dahmer, also known as the Milwaukee Cannibal and the Milwaukee Monster, is one of the most infamous serial killers in American history. Between 1978 and 1991, Dahmer murdered 17 young men and boys, committing heinous crimes that included necrophilia, cannibalism, and the preservation of body parts. His story is one of unimaginable horror, psychological complexity, and societal failure, as law enforcement repeatedly missed opportunities to stop him before his killing spree escalated. The shocking details of Dahmer's crimes, his seemingly ordinary demeanor, and the chilling confessions he made after his capture have cemented him as one of the most disturbing figures in the annals of true crime. Early life of Jeffrey Dahmer. Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer was born on May 21, 1960, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, to Lionel and Joyce Dahmer. He was the eldest of two sons in what initially appeared to be a typical middle-class American family. However, his early years were marked by instability and emotional neglect. As a child, Dahmer was described as shy, introverted, and somewhat distant. He developed a fascination with dead animals at a young age, collecting roadkill and dissecting them in his backyard. This macabre interest in anatomy would later evolve into his grisly modus operandi. Dahmer also exhibited signs of abandonment issues, particularly after his parents' marriage began to deteriorate. His father, a chemist, was often absent, and his mother struggled with mental health issues, leading to a tumultuous home life. By the time Dahmer reached high school, he had become an outcast. He began drinking heavily, a habit that would persist throughout his life. Despite his academic struggles and social isolation, few suspected the darkness brewing beneath his quiet exterior. The first murder, Stephen Hicks, 1978. Dahmer's killing spree began shortly after he graduated from high school in 1978. His first victim was Stephen Hicks, an 18-year-old hitchhiker whom Dahmer lured to his family's home in Bath, Ohio, with the promise of alcohol and companionship. After several hours of drinking and conversation, Hicks attempted to leave. Dahmer, fearing abandonment, bludgeoned Hicks with a dumbbell and later strangled him to death. Dahmer then dismembered Hicks' body and disposed of the remains in garbage bags, burying some of the body parts in the backyard. This first murder set the tone for his future crimes, characterized by a desire to control, possess, and prevent his victims from leaving him. After the murder of Hicks, Dahmer enrolled at Ohio State University but dropped out after one semester due to his drinking problem. He later enlisted in the U.S. Army, where he served as a combat medic in Germany. However, his alcoholism led to his discharge in 1981. The escalation of murders following his discharge, Dahmer returned to the U.S. and moved to Milwaukee in 1982, where his killing spree resumed and escalated. Over the next decade, he would lure young men and boys to his apartment, often under the guise of offering money for photographs or companionship. Once inside, Dahmer would drug his victims, strangle them, and engage in necrophilic acts with their bodies. He would then dismember them, sometimes preserving skulls and other body parts as trophies. Victims of Jeffrey Dahmer. Stephen Twomey, 1987. Dahmer's second known victim was 24-year-old Stephen Twomey. Dahmer claimed that he did not initially intend to kill Twomey but awoke to find him dead after a night of drinking. He dismembered Twomey's body and disposed of the remains in a dumpster. James Dockstader, 1988. A 14-year-old boy who was lured to Dahmer's apartment with the promise of money. Dahmer killed and dismembered him, keeping some body parts for later use. Anthony Sears, 1989. Sears was a 24-year-old aspiring model. Dahmer preserved Sears' skull and genitalia in his apartment as mementos. By the late 1980s, Dahmer had fully developed his gruesome methods, including the use of acid to dissolve flesh and the practice of preserving skulls and skeletons. He was also increasingly drawn to the idea of creating a zombie out of his victims, someone who would be completely submissive and under his control. Failed opportunities to stop Dahmer. Several opportunities arose during Dahmer's killing spree where law enforcement could have stopped him, but systemic failures and societal biases allowed him to continue. 1988 Arrest and conviction. Dahmer was arrested in 1988 for sexually assaulting a 13-year-old boy. He was convicted of second-degree sexual assault and sentenced to 1 year in a work release program. However, he was released after serving only 10 months. This conviction, while serious, did not deter him, and he resumed killing shortly after his release. The Canaric Synthesymphone Incident, 1991. One of the most tragic missed opportunities occurred in May 1991. Canaric Synthesymphone, a 14-year-old Laotian boy, escaped from Dahmer's apartment, drugged and bleeding. Two concerned women found him on the street and called the police. However, when officers arrived, Dahmer convinced them that Synthesymphone was his 19-year-old boyfriend and that they were having a domestic dispute. The police returned the boy to Dahmer, who subsequently killed him. This incident would later become a symbol of the racial and homophobic biases that contributed to law enforcement's mishandling of the case. Capture and arrest Jeffrey Dahmer's killing spree came to an end on July 22, 1991, when 32-year-old Tracy Edwards managed to escape from Dahmer's apartment and flagged down police. Edwards had been lured to the apartment under the promise of money but became suspicious of Dahmer's behavior. Once inside, he was handcuffed and threatened with a knife. Edwards managed to break free and led police back to the apartment. Upon entering Dahmer's apartment, officers discovered photographs of dismembered bodies and a refrigerator containing human remains. The grisly evidence was overwhelming, and Dahmer was immediately arrested. Confession and trial. Following his arrest, Dahmer confessed to the murders of 17 young men and boys. His detailed confessions shocked the nation, as he described the heinous acts he had committed, including necrophilia, cannibalism, and attempts to create zombies by drilling holes into the skulls of his victims and injecting them with acid. Dahmer's trial began in January 1992. He pleaded guilty but insane to 15 counts of murder. The defense argued that Dahmer's mental illness, including a borderline personality disorder and necrophilic tendencies, drove him to commit the murders. However, the jury rejected the insanity defense, and Dahmer was convicted on all counts. On February 17, 1992, Dahmer was sentenced to 15 consecutive life terms, amounting to 957 years in prison. Life and death in prison. Dahmer was incarcerated at the Columbia Correctional Institution in Portage, Wisconsin. In prison, he reportedly found religion and expressed remorse for his crimes. He was baptized and attended Bible study sessions. However, Dahmer's notoriety made him a target among other inmates. On November 28, 1994, he was attacked and killed by fellow inmate Christopher Scarver while performing janitorial duties. Scarver, who was serving a life sentence for murder, later claimed he killed Dahmer because of the nature of his crimes and his perceived lack of remorse. Legacy and cultural impact. The case of Jeffrey Dahmer remains one of the most infamous and horrifying in American history. His crimes have been the subject of numerous documentaries, books, and television series, including the 2022 Netflix series Dahmer, Monster: The Jeffrey Dahmer Story. The case has also sparked discussions about the failures of the criminal justice system, societal prejudices, and the psychological factors that drive serial killers. For the families of Dahmer's victims, his death brought a sense of closure, but the pain and trauma of losing their loved ones remain. The Jeffrey Dahmer case continues to serve as a grim reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary individuals. What do you think of our video? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button. Also subscribe to our channel before you go. Thank you for watching.